Our tale doesn't start with the birth of our protagonists, but a century back in time. Every year, the elderly elf, Elkan Mistrest, would recount the origins of a little nameless hamlet. It was a story that echoed through 3 human generations of this small community. Though not truly ancient, Elkan was much older than anyone in that village, but his mind was filled with memories as vivid as if they occurred yesterday. Each winter's end, as the caravans from Neverwinter set forth on the high road for trade, he would gather the children and take them to the spot on high road where the caravans would come to rest. Here he would share the tales of their ancestors and their escape from a broken Phandelver.
In the twilight of memory, in the year 1385 DR, when the world still bore the scars of the spell plague, the very fabric of the land along the Tribor Trail was torn asunder. In that cataclysmic event, parts of our world, Toril, intertwined with its twin, a bear. A bear, an alien realm inhabited by primordials, dragons, dragonborn, and a myriad of peculiar beings, was a mirror of our own existence. It shared the same sun, moon, and tears, albeit in a slightly shifted existence. Amidst this cosmic dance, it was Conybury that bore the brunt of this merging. The once tranquil town, nestled along the Tribor, was devastated by the spell plague. Despite the desolation, survivors from both Aber and Toril found an unusual common ground within the ruins of Conybury. Together, they forged an alliance born of necessity, giving rise to a mixed community that defied the odds. However, fear and ignorance are powerful adversaries. The Uthgardt Grey Wolf tribe, gripped by the paranoia of the spell plague, viewed the Aberrans as evil invaders and Conybury's folk as their supporters. Their misguided vengeance fell upon the town, forcing the survivors of the attack to join their tribe. It was during this time of uncertainty and upheaval that our own band of refugees, barely 200 souls strong, found themselves on a journey reminiscent of the ancient elven retreat from Cormanthor. We, the elves, along with humans, dwarves, halflings, and others, were driven from our Phandelver homes by the encroaching darkness of the spell plague and the wolf raiders. We fled, and for decades we wandered, enduring orc raids and the biting winds of the Sword Coast. In those nomadic years, our numbers dwindled, but our spirit remained unbroken. Guided by the whispers of hope, we ventured until fate, like an ephemeral dancer, led us to a secluded valley south of Helm's Hold. Here, on the edge of the high road, amidst emerald hills and skies heavy with the weight of history, our tired feet found solace. We had wandered, I don't know, 50, maybe 60 years at this point, settled and resettled, and had never forgotten our history or where we came from in all those years after the spell plague had passed. We had stayed together, others had joined us, and now we had come here. It was spring then. We had stopped for the night and sat here on stones and put up tents and unloaded things. The elders opened the old wagons and there were fires lit. Well, imagine 100 and their fires here. We talked late with the dwarves and the human and halfling elders that night. We talked about the children and the old people. We spoke over and over the things we knew about the landscape and from the old times, and how it might be that the wagons would be lost, and with them many memories of those times, and the few possessions we still owned. Already a lot had been forgotten. Even our kind can only remember so much. And I suppose we looked out at the high road which we'd come along as we do now, and this is when we got the idea. It's spring now, old Ginnis Starkbraid had said, and this part of the coast is very nice and fertile, and very scenic too. And she wondered if maybe they hadn't wandered far enough from the death and ruin which had never hurt this land around here much, and mightn't it be the time to stop? There would be no danger of Bramman getting lost for good with the precious wagon. It had been a long time since the spell plague had passed, the going off the world the Netherese had made. Perhaps those sins had been forgiven, perhaps long ago. We had learned a lot, Ginnis thought, and maybe it was time to stop learning and start living a little. But Brahman didn't know how. He knew how to keep moving. He said, "The land is no friend to us. There are a lot of people who don't love us or welcome us at all, and what about the Netherese?" And old Ginnis said, "The Netherese are dead and gone. As for the wolves," she said, "we can plan against them." And she drew in the ashes by the fire the plan that is the hamlet today, and she said, "We will all be joined and stay together as one." "Well," she convinced Brahman. She was a very persuasive woman, Brahman used to say. And so they called the elders together around their fire, and toward morning it had been decided to build the hamlet as well as we could. Here, in this country, where the spell plague had not touched the land except for the high road, which ran through it almost without stopping. And so that day we left the high road and never took it again.
The surviving refugees toiled tirelessly, carving homes from the rugged earth, sowing the seeds of new beginnings, and building the foundations of a close-knit community. In the soothing embrace of this small valley, their resilience bore fruit. Houses were built, farms flourished, and laughter once again graced their lips. Their tiny home away from home, as they fondly called it, became a testament to their enduring spirit. The inhabitants, an eclectic blend of humans, halflings, elves, dwarves, gnomes, and other kindred souls, forged bonds as strong as steel, bound together by their shared history. Among them, the elders stood as living chronicles of the past. They remembered the exodus from Phandelver 100 years ago, and the arduous odyssey that brought them to this sanctuary. Their stories were woven into the fabric of the hamlet, reminding the younger generations of their roots and the unyielding strength of their forebears. But even those died over time, and eventually it was only the elves and the dwarves and one elderly halfling who still remembered, or even they only told the stories to the children anymore, for the rest of the village had moved on with their lives. But this was never a story of a happy ending. Stripped of resources as they were, the community survived many a tribulation over the past 30 to 40 years. Some died to sickness, others to fires. Still, the nameless hamlet had more or less survived it all, a haven of peace amidst a world in constant flux. Little did its inhabitants know that their struggles were far from over. It is the year 1491 DR, and it was only weeks ago that tragedy struck once again. This time the community was ravaged by a marauding band of goblins, dwindling their numbers further. People died, houses burned. Worst of all, their attempt to settle down had failed yet again. It was then, weary from endless struggles, the elders decided it was time to give up. Perhaps they out to seek refuge in Helm's Hold or even Neverwinter. After all, it has been 100 years since they left to seek out greener pastures. Perhaps there was just no way of building a new village without serious support from one of the bigger settlements. Alas, not all of the villagers agree. Among those dissenting voices are our protagonists, 4 childhood friends who had dreamt of something more than the struggles of their hamlet. As the elders gather the villagers to announce their decision, these 4 exchange determined glances. Together, they decide to strike out on their own, seeking opportunities in the once again burgeoning frontier town of Phandelver. The lost home they only heard stories about from their parents and grandparents and village elders. Phandelver, they heard from passing caravans, is now a place of promise, where adventurers and fortune seekers carve out their destinies amidst the ruins of the past. Tales of new beginnings, uncharted territories, and untold treasures have reached their ears, sparking a glimmer of hope in their hearts. And so, with the echoes of their hamlet's resignation behind them, our protagonists set forth, their eyes fixed on the horizon and the endless possibilities that await them in Phandelver.